Welcome back, everyone. Dana and I are here for another episode to talk about topics that are not controversial at all.
No. I was just going to say, you could tell people that know me really well when I have my mouth shut and I'm smiling and my dimples show really hard. I'm trying really hard not to laugh.
Let's talk about it, like Dana. What non-controversial, uncontroversial, what non-controversial, uncontroversial?
Uncontroversial, either. But
Either.
we can do it in the delicious dish voice. We could say, we're going to talk about the word woke today.
Yeah.
Are you woke?
Right. And all of the things that come with the word. Because I mean, you and I appreciate language, and we talked about person first versus identity first language, because we believe in the power of language. And I think I will start by saying that while I believe that I strive to be someone who's aware of social inequalities, I am not particularly fond of the word woke. I wouldn't use it. I wouldn't use it to describe myself because I don't particularly love where it sits in today's, because it's like automatically, well, I shouldn't say this, but
you are or you aren't.
Right.
And even though it's getting a bad connotation from,
it's getting a bad rap. The word itself is getting a bad rap, and it's like it's taking away from the fact. I mean, for me, it's like it's taking away from the where it comes from, which is it's just someone who's aware of social inequalities. Across different.
Somehow that's a bad thing, and that's sort of the political climate that's happened by using that word in a sarcastic and demeaning and negative way. Yeah, but I think they've also appropriated that word and tried to turn it into something negative, which is what dominant class does all the time. They appropriate things from the oppressed class and then use them in different ways, and that's a way of that in of itself is a way of oppressing, right?
Right.
Now you've taken the word woke away. Right.
It's so true. And I mean, because I like to understand where sayings come from. I can't do that with Gen Zers. Like Gen Zers have weird things, and I'm like, there is no reason. Actually, there's no story behind that. I understand that the word woke, right, it comes from originally African American vernacular, and it's like you're awakening to inequality. You're awakening. Oh wow, these things are happening.
Like, and so I'm now happening all of a sudden.
I was sleeping, right? Like I was asleep. Now I'm woke. I'm awake.
Makes sense.
I'm awake to these things. And I love that idea.
Don't like it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But today, what has happened to the word is it's now become like this kind of extremist, dirty kind of word. And it's sad. It's like really sad to me that that has occurred. And so I find myself kind of in this internal struggle and conflict because I identify with someone who is socially aware and really trying to do things in my actions and my thoughts that address inequality and discrimination. I try to do that because I have that present in myself implicitly. So I'm always checking that, right? That's part of our training as psychologists as well, to really look at our implicit biases and where we've come from and why we think the way we think and the stereotypes that we have, like all of these things. But man, this word today is just it's interesting. I don't know.
They've ruined the word almost.
Yeah.
I find myself using things more like I'm trying to be aware, trying to be mindful. I'm trying to be aware of my own internalized biases, and I'm finding myself avoiding that word too. But I also think that since you went into the history of the word, maybe I shouldn't be using it as a white person, because if it really is a word that was used for, African Americans who had been enslaved, I'd be appropriating it to use it. So maybe I shouldn't be using it. and now we're sort of modeling that idea of that's okay to say, oh, I was using this word and I shouldn't be. Like I've never, I was raised briefly as a child. My parents took us to Catholic church. I don't ascribe to any of that now. The closest thing I ever got to spirituality is what is nature and what Native American beliefs are. So for a long time, I had a lot of images and things like that around my house that I would have. And then I learned the difference between appropriation and appreciation. And that was a really good growth edge for me, because is it for me, or is it like I'm taking this thing that isn't my indigenous culture and I'm going to use it for myself, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to, have other people see it and see, this is what I'm doing. And so now if I talk about what is the closest thing I have to spirituality, it really is connected with the natural world. I no longer say, oh, I really like what Native Americans, their philosophy, because that's appropriation, right? That doesn't mean that there aren't images that I do fundamentally am drawn to. I have a really big indigenous art orca on my back, a tattoo that has all kinds of meaning for me specifically that I won't get into now. And when I first learned that difference between appropriation and appreciation, I was like, oh my God, crap, my tattoo. And I kind of unpacked it with the person I work with that I've talked about a lot on here, who's some of my mentor on oppression learning. And he said, no, it's more like appreciation. It's a personal meaning for you. And it's not like you're traipsing around saying, look at this. And it's in a place that most people can't see. And it has really deep meaning for me. And I do love the lined art that the Northwest Indigenous people specifically have. And so that's what we mean by, that's what is really meant by that, that woke's getting a bad word, it's being weaponized politically. It's seen as a criticism. And that's really their way of saying, oh no, just be white supremacist. There's no reason for you to look at the oppressed experience because it's bad. And that's their way of sort of putting that, it's a complex idea and it's a way of simplifying it and saying, don't do it. And that's what's sort of made it icky, that idea of using that now, which is terrible, right? And there's all kinds of layers of this that get unpacked, and it's highly personal for everybody. I really pride myself on, like you talk about, trying to do as much as I can to learn those things, to continually grow, because it's a lifelong process. Had done a lot of that before the pandemic, and then the George Floyd murder happened, and I made myself watch that 9-minute video. I knew it was going to be upsetting. And I sort of knew up here cognitively and had learned all about the unfairness of how African Americans are treated in this country. So I was aware of the ideas of it. There was something about watching 9 minutes of a man be suffocated while all these people are standing there asking them to stop, but not being able to physically do anything about it. That turned something in me. And it was sort of like a woke moment for me, because it got through another chink of armor, or it settled into a level of understanding I hadn't had prior.
Yep.
Right. So I think when people get defensive because they're like, well, if that happened, then you must have been defensive against something. I may have been, but it could have also been, I just didn't have enough seeing or sitting and walking in those shoes for it to really resonate on a level that it hadn't before. And that's okay too, right? Oil will sit on the top of water until it breaks down enough, and then the particles will slowly. So sometimes those things take longer. It takes longer to brew a really good cup of tea. You don't dip the tea bag in there twice and throw it out, unless you hardly like tea at all, and then you do it and throw it out. But I let it sit in there the whole time I'm drinking it, right? But that is that idea of to be gentle with yourself around some of the stuff. You're not going to get it all, and you're going to continually to lifelong learn things about the other. And they are the other. They're not your experience. So it takes a while to learn those things, and you'll continually, if you're open to opportunities to learn those things, that's the mindset I try to maintain. So if I get caught in oh, you did that. And I love my students because they'll call me on it. They'll say, oh, you did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, thank you. And they'll, oh my God, you said thank you? I was really afraid to confront you about that, because I'll confront other people and they get really defensive and mad at me. And I'm like, well, thank you. I'm not going to judge other people, but that's that's what we're really meaning when we're using that word woke, but more about awareness and living or trying to do as much, getting as close to walking in those shoes as you can, knowing that you can't ever walk in someone else's shoes unless you share that variable with that person.
I mean, I think that's a difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That empathic being able to having a similar in-group experience versus sympathy. I can have sympathy for you, but I will never understand truly how that was for you. I will never truly understand how the trauma that you experienced as a war veteran. I won't. Right. Like I would never even dream to do that. And it's funny because, as we're, this reminds me too of, I was saying it was in our episode about how neurodivergent are you? At what point do you need to be neurodivergent to call yourself neurodivergent? And in so many ways, because, and my clients have been really challenging me lately to really think about my own personality and style of being, because many of my clients have diagnosed me, by the way, which I know seems a little bit reversed.
Yeah.
Right. But, this idea of, I love, and I'm so sad that this got marred or infected by politics. Yeah. I love the idea of awakening.
Yes. Yeah.
There is an awakening. And by the way, if you're out there and you're like, we need to fact check Gwen, because this is not where this comes from, please do.
Let us know. Yeah.
Like fact check me, like for sure. This is my understanding of the origin of this word.
Right.
And so I'm sad that this word has become dirty. And I know it's not dirty for everybody. I'm just saying this is my own experience of it. And I mean, I live in Southern California. Like, I live in a pretty progressive place.
There are all kinds of versions of that right now. Like the word trans has become, they're making that a weaponized word. Being a drag queen is a weaponized word. And the hypocrisy when you see how they behave is ridiculous. But this is a tactic commonly used by those in authority and those that have the privilege to keep those that don't have the privilege down. I mean, it's a known tactic. It's terrible, right?
Yeah.
But I do like that idea of awakening, because it's more like, oh, now I can see it, whereas I couldn't see it before. And thank you.
I couldn't see it before. It's another layer. And, I've never been in a situation where my curiosity and desire to understand another person's position ever was met with defensiveness. Because because of the way of maybe it was my approach, right? Like,
you wanting to know from them.
Right. Help me understand that. I don't understand that, but help me understand that perspective.
That's right.
I really haven't been met with, unless they don't. The only time I should back up, the only time that's ever been met with negativity or defensiveness is when that person doesn't really truly understand why they believe something in particular.
Yeah, or someone could ask that question in a not so friendly way, like, well, I don't understand that, versus I want to understand.
I don't get that, right? Right.
Yeah, I don't get that. What do you mean? I mean, I would shut down, but versus saying something like, I really want to understand that. And then if people say, well, I'm having a hard time putting into words, I'll even give them permission further and say, if you're willing, put as many words to it as you need to until it feels like you hit the nail on the head, and I'll sit here and listen. There's ways to invite that in.
Yep. So this is interesting. Like for me, this is, so that's been it. That's just been an interesting, and I think you're right, Dana. It reflects more of the political climate that we're in today, probably more than anything. And it's being used. That word's being used in dirty, kind of awful weapon ways.
If you look at the people that are bashing it, it's people on one particular side of the aisle. It's not both sides. Yeah. Yeah.
And, I feel like, when I've spoken about this word with some of my clients, I think their connotation of it is an extremist. It's someone that's in your face. It's someone that's making you believe something. It's forcing you, that person is forcing you to believe a certain way. And if that's also the connotation, and again, that's, a very small sample size, right? Like this is just
a very pushy, mean, stupid person. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Right. Do you know what I'm saying though? It's like that also doesn't give it a good, that's not good either. So this idea, can we still be socially aware of the inequalities in our community? Yes. Like, we don't necessarily need to call it anything, but I just found it so interesting. Like, I literally had to do research on like where this word came from. Because I really wanted to understand it. You know? Yeah. And it just changed. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Changes everything.
This changes everything.
And a lot of times people just don't have the time or take the time to learn it, and they just hear it and they're like, oh yeah, well, I'll roll with that. And that, it's worthwhile drilling into. Yeah.
And I wonder, like, this is maybe a tangential idea, but in the world of Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all of these things, TikTok, I think is probably one of the most popular social media platforms today, right? These are by age. Yeah. Oh no, Facebook by far is for the oldies. I mean, TikTok's definitely for the, but sorry, all you. Everyone's like, wait a minute, I like Facebook.
I'm on both, by the way, just so you know. The Awake Project.
Dana's Awake Project. And by the way, if you've only been audio, like if you listen to our show by audio, you've never seen us. Just for context, Dana's white.
Yeah.
And I'm Asian. But just so you know, I mean, like, we're coming at this from our own cultural kind of perspectives. Anyway, but if I think about, if you only have a few seconds or less than a minute or two to make a point on a video, you're going to grab for something baity, right? You're going to grab for something that's going to be big. And the way that I see my almost 16-year-old use TikTok is that it feeds her videos and she scrolls through them right after another.
Yeah.
Just kind of think about, like, psychologically.
And the thing that's nice about TikTok is also its nemesis in terms of what we're talking about. It learns what you like and feeds you more of what you like.
Yeah.
So now
which is what all platforms do.
Yeah. So now you're not saying things that might expand your mind more. And so it can be doing that confirmation bias, which when you want to just see dogs and horses works great for me.
Right.
I don't
But not when there's a political agenda or a platform in which you're in an echo chamber, and it would be beneficial for you to maybe take other people's perspectives on an issue.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's the danger of it. And I think that's what's amped up a lot of people staying in an echo chamber. Social media has been the evil force for a lot of that.
Yeah. I would agree. It's good. I don't do social media much to the people that help me in my business, much to their dismay. I stay because I can't. It's like too much input for me. And I'm also very private. Like, I'm like, I mean, unless I were to post things about business, which it would be fine. But this is so interesting. Like, if you were someone that where woke was a dirty word for you, that's all the video you're gonna get.
Yeah. Exactly.
Versus the other side of it, like, you would get the other side of it too, but there is influence. I mean, these are influential on your psyche. And how many hours do people spend on social media a day?
Yeah, you can look and you can see what your consumption is. Your phone will give you that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
I mean, like, just leave me to my Stargate. Good grief. Okay, anyway, that's total.
It's a related tangent. It's
a related tangent. Like, okay, fine. I've expanded to Stargate Atlantis. It's fine. Okay, it's fine, people.
By the way, Osaka is really good. Check it out.
Really? Oh, Osaka. Yes. Yeah, of course. Star Wars. Yeah, it is very good. I think it if you're a Rebels, I love Rebels, Star Wars Rebels. Love Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
I will say the live action Ahsoka is so satisfying if you're a Rebels fan. Just saying.
I have to check out the Rebels thing. I haven't seen that. I'm going to go back.
Oh my God. Dana, you have.
I will.
Okay. It's like, I think it's one of the best.
Yeah.
It's one of the, out of the Star Wars world, Star Wars Rebels, excellent. Clone Wars, necessary in the canon.
Yeah. I haven't gone to those since they're animated, but I need to just do it. Yeah.
Got to do it. And if you're into Ahsoka, you got to go. You got to go to the Rebels. Like you got to go to Rebels. It gives you so much context for like what's happening.
I'm going to woke myself to the Rebels.
Yeah.
And the Clone Wars stuff now. See, but before I was like, no, I don't want to do animated. No. Okay, I'll do it. In the interest of discovery and awareness, I will do it.
Yeah, and it adds another dimension and layer to the story and the character development. It helps you understand the decisions that they're making.
Cool. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Wow. Dana and I don't have ADHD at all. Squirrel.
We don't. We just go on tangents. Yeah. I actually don't.
It's so fun.
ADHD, but I'm really good
I don't either.
From my autism. So yeah.
I told you I've been diagnosed by my clients as having ADHD, and I said, "Are you sure?" And they're like, "Can we just review the last 15 minutes of what we just spoke about?" So, okay. Anyway, okay. Well, that I was like, "Yes," but did we grow from it? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah, but you track better than I do, so I don't think attention is an issue for you. Yeah.
Now I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes like too hyper-focused on something maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more autism-ish, neurodivergent in general.
Esque. Yeah, that's more ND-esque.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you like that? We'll make that an episode. That's what we should have called our other episode, which was ND-esque.
ND-esque. Neurospicy people use that now as kind of a...
Neurospicy is where people Dana wants to make hoodies, you guys, NeuroMarvels hoodies that say neurospicy on it.
Yeah.
Thumbs up or thumbs down on that. That's so hilarious to me. We also wanted to make a Dorks Unite hoodie, but
Of course. Yeah.
Duh.
Oh, and I it's funny. We've said duh a lot today, and then I said stupid and corrected myself.
Yeah.
I'm having people ask me to not say duh anymore, and I want to be respectful of that.
Why?
It's kind of like this remark that just goes out there as like, that's stupid, or you're stupid. It kind of has roots in judgy someone else, like, well, duh. So people that have been marginalized for being stupid, duh is kind of like a trigger. So I'm trying to...
I see. Well, if that's, I mean, feel free to comment.
It fits with this episode, though. Like that's a good example of why I'm trying to. The one side of the aisle will say, "Well, then, now it's cancel culture, and you have to watch every word you're using." That's that side, and the other side will say, the side that I like to be on is the awareness side and learning is words do have meaning, and it's worth it to me to be mindful of a word that might have a connotation, like you looked up the origins of woke. And maybe it's okay for me to get used to using a different word. We used to say, and this is going to be a trigger here. I'm gay, but we used to call people in junior high and high school. We had a game we played as kids called Smear the Queer. That was the name of it. That was the name of it. So we evolved, right? And now, of course, we've gone full circle. I like using the word queer, but faggot and some of these other more loaded ones, we don't use the N word. You don't use those.
Yeah.
So it's worthwhile, continuing to evolve and hearing. And I asked that person, well, what does that mean for you when I say duh? Because I'm thinking more like Homer Simpson when he just goes, duh, like he catches himself.
Yeah. Right. It's more of a punctuation.
She said it feels like a judgment, like you're being elitist and telling me that I'm stupid, like that was a duh thing. And I was like, oh. So that's worthwhile to me to let that sit and see. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's a thoughtfulness. It's a thoughtfulness about the spaces you're in. That's all this is. I mean, I get it. Like, I mean, my mom, I've talked about my mom in here. She's probably like, oh no, here we go again. Because my mom listens to our podcast. But, she's like, you can't like just sterilize everything. And it's like, that's an extreme thought, right? It's really about how are you thoughtful about the space that you are in.
And we have so many words in the English language. We're not going to run out of them. And we're always making new ones. Neurodivergent wasn't a word 20 years ago.
I know.
And yet
people do want to pee on their words though. Like, they want to own those.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I know, even the R word, that one really bothers me.
Yeah.
Just because I work with so many so many young adults and so many adults who have their intellectual disabilities, and it's just awful. It's just an awful word. And I know it's very, I also came to learn from my daughter that spaz is negative today.
That's not a good one.
And I used that word a lot growing, like, don't be a spaz. I would say that. And I didn't know. She corrected me just recently. And I was like, really? And they're like, oh yeah, it's more referring to epilepsy and things. And I was like, oh, I didn't know.
Well, because like you said the R word, they'll use that in medicine still. Like they have retarded growth. The word is meant to be, it's constricted. It's not going where it should. But you use it psychologically and has all that meaning of your.
It has connotations, and then this is really the name. Like this is really the heart of our episode today. Is that words exist in context, and so this is why things are changing, because contexts change. Our world changes. Our families change. Like these things change, and so it's not. We're not telling you what word is right or wrong to use. What we're saying is, be mindful of the stuff that's coming out of your mouth.
Yes. I didn't do well in school till halfway through high school. And my sister, one of my nicknames for me was Dino. She called me Dino the dumb dinosaur. Dumb, 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 dumb. I don't remember the R word a lot, but I can't. If I had $1 for every time someone called me dumb, I wouldn't have to do this podcast. I'd be living on an island by myself and people would be fanning me with palm fronds. And actually, I would never be comfortable with that. But you know what I mean.
I was going to say, like, first of all, Dana, like, we don't do this for money now. So I'm just saying.
I'd still be doing the podcast.
We'd still be doing the podcast.
Someone else would be making my bloody bed every morning, not me.
No, vacuuming.
Yeah, vacuuming and new sheets every day. That'd be my 2 indulgences.
Yeah. You being fan, though.
That would do that for me, I would pay really, really well, too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because the quality of life that you're bringing is, like, big.
That's right.
Like, I have tendinitis. Like, people, like, this on Dana's recommendation, because of my vacuuming problem that I have, I have this. This episode's been brought to you by Voltaren.
Voltaren, the anti-inflammatory cream for the newer generation, because we don't use Bengay anymore, because Bengay doesn't actually treat inflammation and it smells bad. Yeah.
Or if you're Asian, Tiger Balm.
Yeah.
Like I could smell my grandmother coming from like 5 miles away.
Yeah, totally.
I was like, ooh, someone got arthritis today. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So words evolve and we don't say spaz and some other words. And those are great examples of the good aspects of woke. Being awake, learning, seeing, being aware.
Be awake. That's all. Yeah. That's all, peeps. Like, let's calm down about it. Okay. Yeah. All right, everyone. We will see you in the next episode. Be good to you.
You did it.
See.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye.